Ladies and gentlemen, when we think about the spiritual realm, we often default to certain ideas about what it looks like and who is involved. But let me tell you, spiritual warfare is not confined to stereotypes. It is subtle, it is strategic, and it is real. In every community, every generation, and every culture, the evidence of spiritual activity surrounds us. Yet, one of the most overlooked and misunderstood elements of this is the existence of male witches. Those who operate in spiritual manipulation, control, and deception for selfish gain. Now, I want you to understand something from the outset. This is not about fear. This is about knowledge. Because when you understand the characteristics of something, you're better equipped to identify it and address it. So today, let's dig deep into understanding some key signs of a male witch. Those who operate in spiritual manipulation in ways that distort truth and disrupt lives. The first sign is dominance. You see, a male witch often exerts a controlling influence over others. It's not a healthy form of leadership. It's not about guiding or protecting. It's about manipulation. It's about bending others to their will for their own purposes. Whether it's in relationships, organizations, or even families, their presence creates an atmosphere of fear, not respect. They don't lead, they dominate. And domination is never the hallmark of godly authority. True leadership inspires people to grow, to think, to flourish. But a male witch uses control to stifle others, keeping them in submission to their agenda. The second sign is deceit. These individuals are masters of twisting truth to serve their own purposes. They might use spiritual language, quoting scriptures, or speaking as though they have divine insight. But when you peel back the surface, you find manipulation at its core. They thrive on half-truths and outright lies, using them to build a web of control that ensnares the vulnerable. Their words are often persuasive, but they lack the integrity and sincerity that come from a heart rooted in truth. The third sign is exploitation. Male witches often seek personal gain at the expense of others. They exploit trust, resources, and even emotions to build themselves up. Whether it's financial, emotional, or spiritual exploitation, the pattern is clear. They take and take, leaving others drained and depleted. They create dependency rather than empowerment, always ensuring that others need them instead of equipping people to stand on their own. The fourth sign is rebellion. These individuals often operate outside of godly principles and established order. They resist accountability, reject correction, and often thrive in secrecy. They're drawn to power and influence, but they refuse to submit to any authority that doesn't align with their own desires. This rebellious spirit can manifest in subtle ways, such as undermining leadership or fostering division. But make no mistake, rebellion is at the root of their actions. And the fifth sign is counterfeit power. Male witches often display an illusion of spiritual strength. They may perform acts or display abilities that seem supernatural, but their source is not divine. It is counterfeit. They might mimic the gifts of the Spirit, but their fruits reveal their true nature. They seek to dazzle, to impress, and to draw people to themselves rather than pointing them to the Creator. Their power may look real, but it lacks the purity and purpose of true spiritual authority. Now, why is this important? Because recognizing these signs is the first step to standing firm against them. You see, the greatest weapon of a male witch is not their power, it's ignorance. When people don't know what to look for, they fall prey to manipulation, control, and deception. But when you know the signs, when you understand the tactics, you can resist. And let me remind you of this: light always exposes darkness. No matter how cunning or deceptive someone may be, truth always prevails. So let us walk in truth. Let us commit to discerning spirits, not just through intellect, but through a deep, abiding connection with the Creator. Because when you are connected to the source of all truth, no counterfeit can stand. Now, let's go a bit deeper into this. The issue here is not just identifying these traits, but understanding the impact they have on individuals, families, communities, and even nations. When spiritual manipulation goes unchecked, it spreads like a poison. It distorts relationships, derails destinies, and creates cycles of fear and control. This is not just an individual problem. It's a societal one. Consider for a moment how dominance impacts relationships. When someone exerts control for their own gain, they rob others of the freedom to think, choose, and grow. It's subtle at first, small demands, quiet manipulations. But over time, it becomes a pattern. A person who operates in this way thrives on keeping others dependent. They make you feel like you can't make a decision without their input. They use guilt, fear, and even spiritual language to make their dominance seem legitimate. But here's the truth. No healthy relationship operates in an environment of control. True leadership, true guidance creates room for others to flourish, not just survive. And then there's deceit. Oh, how dangerous this can be. You see, the male witch doesn't just lie outright. They often blend truth and lies so seamlessly that it's hard to tell the difference. They speak words that sound good, words that appeal to emotions, but their intent is to manipulate. They are skilled in using flattery to gain trust and twisting facts to suit their narrative. And here's the tragedy. People often believe them because they sound convincing. But let me tell you, sounding convincing doesn't make something true. Truth stands on its own. It doesn't need embellishment. And it certainly doesn't need manipulation. That's why discernment is so critical. If you don't cultivate a spirit of discernment, you risk being misled by someone who knows how to play on your emotions and your trust. Exploitation is another devastating sign, and it often goes unnoticed until the damage is done. A male witch seeks to drain others, whether emotionally, financially, or spiritually, for their own benefit. They might disguise their intentions with acts of kindness or grand gestures, but those acts always come with strings attached. Their goal is not to give, it's to take. They might claim to be helping you, but what they're really doing is binding you to them, creating a sense of obligation that ensures you keep giving your time, your resources, your energy, without ever truly receiving anything in return. And let me say this, true giving is selfless. It doesn't demand repayment. But exploitation masquerades as generosity, while slowly taking everything from you. Then we come to rebellion, which is perhaps one of the most telling signs. Rebellion is not just about outward actions. It's about the posture of the heart. A male witch resists submission to any high authority, whether it's spiritual, relational, or organizational. They operate in secrecy because they know that accountability would expose them. They thrive on division, stirring up strife and conflict to undermine leadership and create chaos. Why? Because rebellion is rooted in pride. It says, I don't need anyone. I don't answer to anyone. But here's the thing. Pride always leads to a fall. When someone refuses to submit to authority, they isolate themselves, and in isolation, they lose their ability to grow, to learn, and to truly lead. And finally, let's talk about counterfeit power. This is perhaps the most deceptive of all the signs because it looks so real. The male witch often displays abilities or insights that seem supernatural, but their source is not divine. They might speak with authority, perform acts that seem miraculous, or claim to have deep spiritual knowledge, but their fruit reveals their true nature. They seek to draw people to themselves, not to the Creator. They want the glory, the attention, the recognition. But true spiritual power always points back to its source. It doesn't glorify the individual, it glorifies the divine. And here's a key difference. True power brings freedom, healing, and transformation. Counterfeit power might dazzle you for a moment, but it leaves you empty and bound in the end. So what do we do with this knowledge? First, we must cultivate awareness. You can't address what you don't recognize. And awareness starts with understanding not just the signs, but also the patterns. Male witches don't operate in isolation. Their actions ripple out, affecting everyone around them. If you see dominance, deceit, exploitation, rebellion, and counterfeit power in someone's behavior, don't ignore it. Don't dismiss it as personality quirks or misunderstandings. Call it what it is, because ignoring it only allows it to grow. Second, we must strengthen our own discernment. Discernment is not about suspicion, it's about clarity. It's about seeing beyond the surface and understanding the spirit behind the actions. And discernment doesn't come from intellect alone. It comes from a deep connection with the source of all truth. When you stay connected to that source, you develop the ability to see clearly, even when deception is at its most subtle. Third, we must stand firm. Confronting manipulation and control is never easy. It requires courage, wisdom, and a deep commitment to truth. But let me tell you this. Light always overcomes darkness. No matter how deep the deception, no matter how strong the manipulation, truth has a way of exposing what's hidden, and when truth is revealed, freedom follows. But let me caution you. Standing firm doesn't mean engaging in battles that aren't yours to fight. It doesn't mean trying to change someone who doesn't want to change. Sometimes the best way to stand against manipulation is simply to refuse to participate in it. Set boundaries. Protect your mind, your heart, and your spirit. And remember this, you are not powerless. You have the ability to choose, to walk away, to say no. Never underestimate the power of those choices. We must commit to living in truth ourselves. It's easy to point out the flaws in others, but we must also examine our own hearts. Are there areas where we've allowed control, deceit, or pride to creep in? Are there moments when we sought power or influence for the wrong reasons? True discernment begins with self-reflection. When you live in truth, when you walk in integrity, you become a light that exposes darkness. Not by force, but by the sheer power of authenticity. Let me leave you with this thought. Manipulation, control, and deception are not new. They've existed throughout history in every culture and every era. But so has truth. And truth, my friends, is eternal. It doesn't change. It doesn't fade. It doesn't bend to the whims of culture or circumstance. And when you align yourself with truth, you align yourself with something far greater than any manipulation, any control, or any deception. Now let's take a moment to reflect on the ripple effects of these behaviors. You see, a male witch is not just a disruptor of individuals, but also a disruptor of environments. Wherever they operate, they create instability. Relationships break down, communities are divided, and spiritual growth is stunted. Why? Because their actions are designed to serve their own agenda, not the greater good. Think about dominance again. When one person seeks to control others, they strip away autonomy. They remove the God-given right to choose, to grow, and to think independently. Over time, this creates a culture of fear. People stop dreaming, stop challenging the status quo, and stop striving for their potential because they're constantly second-guessing themselves. And fear is a powerful weapon, my friends. It paralyzes. It makes people compliant. But we were not created to live in fear. Fear is the language of oppression, while freedom is the language of truth. And what about deceit? The damage caused by deceit is often more profound than we realize. Lies erode trust. And without trust, relationships crumble. Whether it's in a family, an organization, or a spiritual community, trust is the glue that holds people together. When deceit enters the picture, it creates confusion. People begin to question what's real and what's not. They lose their sense of stability. If I take something like this, when you get led up to be an abusive relationship, and let me tell you something, confusion is fertile ground for more manipulation. A deceiver thrives in an environment where people are unsure, where they doubt themselves and each other. That's why truth is so critical. Truth is not just a concept. It's a weapon against confusion. Exploitation, too, has far-reaching consequences. When someone uses others for their own benefit, they leave behind a trail of brokenness. People who've been exploited often struggle with feelings of inadequacy, guilt, and worthlessness. They wonder why they weren't enough, why they allowed themselves to be taken advantage of. But let me say this, to anyone who has been exploited, it's not your fault. Manipulators are skilled at what they do. They prey on kindness, trust, and vulnerability. But there is healing available. You don't have to carry the weight of someone else's selfishness. You can reclaim your dignity, your power, and your voice. Now let's look at rebellion. Rebellion might seem like a personal issue, but it rarely stays contained. A rebellious spirit infects others. It stirs up division, creating factions where there should be unity. It fosters an atmosphere of distrust, where people are more focused on tearing each other down than building something meaningful together. Rebellion is the opposite of submission. And submission, when done rightly, is not about weakness, but about alignment. Alignment with truth, with order, with purpose. When someone rejects alignment, they create chaos. And chaos is the breeding ground for destruction. Counterfeit power, perhaps more than any other sign, deceives not just individuals, but entire groups. When someone operates in counterfeit power, they often attract a following. People are drawn to the appearance of strength, to the illusion of insight and authority. But remember this, not all power comes from a pure source. Counterfeit power is flashy but hollow. It promises much, but delivers little. And those who follow it often end up disillusioned, drained, and disconnected from true spiritual power. Real power doesn't demand attention. It doesn't manipulate. It simply is. It heals, restores, and uplifts without ever seeking credit. So how do we guard against these influences? The first step is to build a strong foundation. A foundation rooted in truth, integrity, and discernment. You see, when your foundation is solid, no amount of manipulation or deceit can shake you. It's like a tree with deep roots. Storms may come, winds may blow, but the tree stands firm because its roots go deep into the soil. And what is the soil we're rooted in? It's truth. It's a connection to the divine that keeps us steady even when everything around us feels uncertain. The next step is accountability. No one is above it. Accountability is not a restriction, it's a safeguard. It protects us from falling into the traps of pride, deceit, and rebellion. When we surround ourselves with people who can speak truth into our lives, who can challenge us when we're wrong and encourage us when we're right, we create an environment where manipulation cannot thrive. Accountability shines a light on darkness. It keeps us humble. And humility is the antidote to so many of the issues we've discussed today. Another critical step is to cultivate courage. Because confronting manipulation, deceit, and exploitation requires bravery. It's not easy to stand up to someone who has wielded power over you. It's not easy to set boundaries, to say no, to walk away. But courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to act despite it. When you choose to stand in truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it costs you something, you reclaim your power. And let me tell you, that kind of courage inspires others. It creates a ripple effect of freedom. We must commit to being agents of truth and light in our own lives. It's not enough to identify manipulation in others. We must also root it out in ourselves. Are there areas where we've used control to get what we want? Are there moments when we've twisted the truth to serve our agenda? None of us are perfect, but perfection is not the goal. Growth is. When we commit to living with integrity, when we align our actions with our values, we become a beacon for others. And light doesn't have to fight darkness. It simply shines. Let me leave you with this thought. No matter how powerful manipulation and deceit may seem, they are always temporary. Truth is eternal. It doesn't change and it doesn't fail. When you align yourself with truth, you align yourself with a power far greater than anything this world can offer. So walk in truth, stand firm in your convictions, and never underestimate the impact of your light in a world that desperately needs it. As we reflect on the impact of truth in our lives, it's essential to remember that truth is not simply about knowledge. It's about alignment. It's about living consistently with what we know to be true. The challenge, my friends, is not just identifying what is false, but living out what is true, even when it's difficult, even when it's unpopular. It's easy to follow the crowd. It's easy to get swept up in the latest trends or to mimic the behaviors we see around us. But when you are rooted in truth, your life becomes a testimony to something much greater than yourself. You become a witness to a power that transcends earthly systems, a power that cannot be manipulated, a power that is unwavering in its ability to heal and restore. Now consider this. When we begin to live in alignment with truth, we stop being victims of manipulation. We stop allowing ourselves to be swayed by every wind of doctrine or by the latest spiritual fads. Our spiritual immunity grows stronger. We stop being vulnerable to counterfeit power because we recognize it for what it is. And the beauty of this is that as we grow in truth, we also begin to recognize the truth in others. We learn to spot manipulation before it ensnares us. We develop an intuition for falsehood, and we begin to see through the masks that people wear. This doesn't make us judgmental. It makes us discerning. Discernment is a gift. It's not something we can conjure up on our own, but it is something we can develop by deepening our connection to the divine. It comes when we spend time in the presence of truth. Just as the best way to identify counterfeit currency is to study real currency, the best way to discern falsehood is to be so grounded in truth that you can recognize anything that doesn't align with it. And this kind of discernment is not for our benefit alone, it is for the benefit of others. When we walk in truth, we become the ones who can guide others out of the darkness of manipulation and deceit. We become the beacons that light the way for others to follow. But with that awareness comes responsibility. The truth we know and the discernment we develop should not just be for our protection, it should be used to help others. The moment we begin to walk in truth, we are given the responsibility to help those around us walk in truth as well. It's not enough to simply guard ourselves against manipulation. We are called to protect those who are vulnerable, those who might not yet see the dangers lurking around them. This is not about becoming a spiritual police force. It's about walking in love and grace. It's about offering a hand to someone who is struggling in deception, pointing them gently to the light of truth. Let's talk about grace for a moment. Grace is a powerful force. It's the power to forgive, the power to restore, the power to uplift. And when we encounter manipulation and deceit, the natural reaction might be anger or frustration, especially when we feel betrayed or exploited. But grace allows us to take a step back, to see beyond the actions of others and to understand the deeper roots of their behavior. Grace doesn't condone the wrong, it calls out the wrong while offering healing. It's the balance between confrontation and compassion. Yes, we must confront manipulation, but we also need to recognize the pain that often drives it. Many times the person who operates in deception or control has their own wounds, their own hurts, and their own fears. This doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps us understand it. It allows us to approach them with compassion instead of condemnation. Our job is not to fight against the person, it's to stand against the spirit of manipulation, the spirit of control, the spirit of deceit. And in doing so, we also offer the opportunity for healing. We open the door for transformation, not just for ourselves, but for others as well. So let's consider how we can apply this knowledge in our daily lives. It begins by cultivating a deep awareness of the spiritual dynamics around us. In every interaction, in every relationship, we need to be aware of the influences at play. Is the spirit of control present? Is there an underlying agenda that seeks to manipulate or exploit? And just as importantly, we need to check our own hearts. Are we operating from a place of humility and transparency, or are we subtly trying to control situations for our benefit? Are we being honest with ourselves and others, or are we bending the truth to fit our desires? These are important questions to ask if we are to walk in integrity. The next step is to commit to building healthy, transparent relationships. This doesn't mean we avoid conflict or pretend that everything is perfect. In fact, it means we face conflict with honesty and a desire for resolution. Healthy relationships are built on trust, and trust is built on honesty. When we encounter control, deceit, or exploitation in a relationship, the best thing we can do is address it head on. We don't let it fester. We don't allow it to go unchecked. We have the courage to speak the truth in love, even if it's uncomfortable. And let me say this, speaking the truth is not about being harsh or condemning. It's about speaking the truth in love with the goal of healing and restoration. There's no place for cruelty in confrontation. Even when we have to challenge someone's actions, we do it with respect and empathy. We understand that everyone is on a journey, and sometimes that journey involves coming face to face with difficult truths. This too takes courage. It takes the courage to speak up when something isn't right, to stand firm when others are trying to lead us astray, and to maintain our integrity even when the pressure to conform is strong. When you stand in truth, you will inevitably face opposition. But remember, the path of truth is always worth the cost. It is a path that leads to freedom, to peace, to clarity. And when we walk it, we open the door for others to walk it too. Let's not forget the power of prayer in all of this. Prayer is the anchor that keeps us steady in the storm. It is the source of our strength, our wisdom, and our discernment. When we feel unsure or overwhelmed, we turn to prayer. Prayer connects us to the divine, to the source of all truth. It is in prayer that we find the clarity we need to confront deception and to protect ourselves from manipulation. And it is through prayer that we find the strength to forgive, to heal, and to restore relationships that have been broken by control or exploitation. In the end, it all comes down to the decision to live with integrity, to walk in truth, and to operate in love. When we make that decision, we break the chains of manipulation. We reject the counterfeit and embrace the authentic. We choose to be a force for good in the world, shining light into darkness, offering hope to the hopeless, and standing firm in the face of deception. This is the path of true strength, the path of true freedom, and the path of true transformation. And as we walk this path, we become a part of something much larger than ourselves. We become part of a movement that seeks to restore what has been broken, to heal what has been wounded, and to bring truth to every corner of this world. So I encourage you today, stand firm, stand in truth, stand in love, and know that you are never alone on this journey. You are part of a greater purpose, a divine calling to walk in integrity, to walk in freedom, and to bring others into the light. As we come to the close of this message, I want to leave you with a strong transformative thought. Jesus, the embodiment of truth, is our ultimate example of standing against manipulation, deceit, and exploitation. In his life, he confronted the forces of darkness with unwavering integrity, and he did so with a love that broke every chain and healed every wound. Jesus never used his power to control or dominate. He used it to serve, to lift, and to restore. When he faced the greatest manipulation of all, when he was betrayed, falsely accused, and ultimately crucified, he did not retaliate. He did not seek to control the situation or strike back with vengeance. Instead, he chose the path of truth, the path of sacrificial love, and the path of freedom. His words from the cross still resonate today. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Even in the face of manipulation and exploitation, he chose forgiveness. He chose love. And he chose truth. What does this teach us? It teaches us that truth is not just a set of principles or actions, it is a person. It is Jesus Christ himself. When we live in alignment with him, we are walking in truth. When we choose love over manipulation, when we choose forgiveness over control, when we choose to confront deceit with compassion, we are reflecting the heart of Christ. So, as we go forward from this moment, I challenge you to live in the light of that truth. Stand firm, not in your own strength, but in the strength of the one who is the way, the truth, and the life. Let his message be your message. Let his love be your love. And let his courage be your courage. Because the truth of Jesus Christ will always prevail. And when we walk in his truth, we too will break the chains of manipulation, deceit, and control. We will be set free, and we will set others free. This is the power of the gospel. This is the power of truth. This is the power of love. So stand in his truth, walk in his love, and know that when you do, You are not just fighting against darkness, you are bringing the light of Christ into the world. You are a witness to the freedom he offers, and you are called to be a beacon of his truth in every area of life. Let us go forward today with the same courage, strength, and unwavering commitment to truth that Jesus showed us, knowing that his message is not just a past event. It is a living, breathing power that transforms us every day. Walk in that power. Walk in that truth. And walk in his love now and forever.